Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at www.twitch.tv/Dark Humility for usually 7 days a week. Diablo 2 variety content, PD2 LOD, name it. We're definitely doing D2R when it comes out. But anyway, today we got a special treat for you guys. We have an Ice Maiden on Season 2 Hardcore Project Diablo 2. This is
I can already tell that I'll be your best
a hardcore.
This forsaken camp.
This is a hardcore Ice Maiden. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the Cult of Xana, King Sev 89. She is a beast. We will first go over, of course, her strong LOD areas and then her strongest maps. We will also be posting her map rankings in order in the description, and of course, we will also. Anyway, I'll do the LOD areas, the maps, I'll post the map areas and her rankings in the description, and of course, at the end, we'll talk about her stats, skills, gear options, and overall how she compares to other builds. What I will say, though, is that, in my opinion, you might know from my tiers video, if you've already watched it, the Season 2 tiers video, that this is an S tier build. I would consider this build to be insanely strong. Or mapping. Insanely strong. Loki, thank you so much for 3 months as a member of Xana's Attack Squad, the Ghost of the Machine, the Arcane Disciples chat. Spam those eyes of Xana and give him a Xana salute in the chat. Anyway, I really love this build. She's got insane clear, even without insane gear. However, with insane gear, she is insanely powerful. Absolutely eviscerating the map she comes into contact with in the late game. So today, I guess first, start with her best LOD areas and move on from there. So we got our CTA, we got our Valkyries. We're moving out. We're gonna go find a Worldstone. Go show you guys the basic cow level, which is probably where most people should start out farming on this build. Hell and Nightmare cows are amazing if you want to start out with this build in the beginning of your season. He is a monster in here. Let's check it out. So obviously this is a fully built Ice Maiden or Ice Zon. No matter how you call the build. Ice Bozon, Ice Zon, Ice Maiden. One of those, right? Ice is so good. Thank you so much again, Loki. Hope you're doing awesome. What's up, Angus Daddy? How you doing? Alright, so it's S2HC Ice on, yeah. Alright, so we have our Valkyries to go out in front, keep us safe, and also help to kill cold immunes along with the Mercenary. As you can see, once you get this much power, there is no cow that will stand in your way between you and your loot. It is absolutely ridiculous. No kind of joke. And you can isolate any cold immunes that do appear with your freezing arrow by killing everything else. Absolutely everything else dies. This area is amazing because it has high density and there's no cold immunes. Highly recommend it for LOD farming, especially early game. Let's see if we can find any more GGs this video, like we always find, typically, when I make a video of this kind. But yeah, you can already see just how ridiculous she is, even in LOD areas. She gives them all the old 1-2. Bam, they're on the ground. Times it's just a 1 though. You can also kite around and do some orb walking. You guys are familiar with the practice from MOBAs. You can do some orb walking with it. Yeah, some ultra high mechanics here, Kappa. Ultra high level stuff. Kick! Alright, here we go. So clean ice arrows. So no messy bodies. I agree, Hyper Midget. What's up, man? Nice to see some of you guys tonight. How's your guys' Friday going so far? Guys waiting for D2R next season, some of you guys? How we doing? Don't be afraid to ask questions in the chat while I'm making this guide, of course. My YouTube videos are pretty unstructured in general. I mean, they have a structure for the guides, the general like organization, like I start the LOD areas and then her strong maps and then move on to the stats and gear choices and options for hardcore and softcore and whatnot, but still, we'll put it though, we'll put it. Yeah, man, I don't know. You know, to maintain the original feel, they might leave it in, which would be really trolly, but hope they don't. I really hope they make it to where the Calkin could be killed infinite times. That would be really cool. It's one of the most annoying things I think about Baal on original Diablo. Ah, yes. Emerald! Emerald, baby. Let's do it. Alright, so as you can see, this area is flattened. No seconds flat. Flattened. Absolutely destroyed. Ice Boson is always a treat. In the cow level. Besides that, though, she's not an amazing key farmer because there's a lot of cold immunes to contend with, and she's honestly too slow, even if you use the Vigor Act 1 Mercenary approach. For Pit, not ideal unless you have insane gear, and we have pretty insane gear. It's not like the strongest gear at the moment, but we could do Pit, but I'm not going to show this build in that area because it's definitely not one of her strongest areas in general because of the number of cold immunes in that area. Also, the Mercenary would have to kill some of the monsters in there because you can't even break them all with Infinity. Also, boss running, probably also not the best on this character, however, it's decent. So next we're going to move on to some strong Act 2 areas. There's 3 max level, 85 area level LOD areas in Act 2 in Project Diablo 2 that she's really strong in. Let's check it out. First one. You guessed it, Stony Tomb. Infinity does break the skeletons in Pit, yes. It does not break these stalkers, though. The dark stalkers. You're correct. I wasn't going to go into detail, but, you know, you can always, elaborate. Dark Humility. Which cold immune in the Pit cannot be broken by Infinity? It's a Jeopardy question. Dark Stalkers. Ding, ding, ding. You are the winner. 800 points. Diablo 2 mechanics for 800. Okay. Alright, sweet. Got this. So as you can see, cold immunes and fire immunes, there are none in here. This area is a very good area for any cold or fire character to farm. Combustion Sorceress, Orb Sorceress, and, well, Ice Maiden, why not? Very solid. Gets the job done. No sweat. Trauma, what's up, man? Oh, baby. What's up, Trauma? How you doing? We are doing our guide on the Ice Maiden. So we're starting out farming our LOD areas. I'm going to farm our best maps. We'll talk about what makes these things great, and of course talk about our stats, gear, and skills at the end. Hopefully we find some GGs as well. So as you can see, the Stony Tomb just gets wiped clean, and honestly, just like in Hell Cows and Nightmare Cows, you don't need a lot of gear to do these areas because there's no cold immunes at all, so you don't need an Infinity and everything else we currently have on. It might even be a better idea to go Act 1 Mercenary, I'd say 100% for LOD areas so you can move around quicker. It's more of a priority than getting that negative res anyway. Act 2 Mercenary is definitely not the way to go until you have an Infinity in hand. And even then, it might not always be the way to go in the end game, but we'll talk about that shortly. Always more stuff to go over. What's up? Hope you appreciate the glug. We got them all! Nice to see you guys all this Saturday. Sorry, not Saturday. Friday night. You guys are beasts. Remember, tomorrow at 1 p.m. PST, we will be starting our 8-man hardcore push if you want to make a new hardcore character on PD2. Tomorrow might be your last chance to join one of my pushes this season. And also, next weekend will be the last Slam Fest 2.2. We will have, again, another 200 plus mid to high stakes slams with prizes and guessing games and everything else. And if you check exclamation HC free or HC trade, you can also let me know if you would like any items off the free or the trade list after we're done making this guide. But you're gonna have to wait till we're done making the guide because I don't want to interrupt it with things like that typically. No, no, no. Continuous gameplay, Dark Humility. Was not Ripfest, okay? Last time it actually was fine, okay? Last time there were 0 deaths. The time before that, well, you know, but that's okay. The next Act 2 area that is worth mentioning is the Maggot Lair. Honestly, full damage characters, all the Act 2 85 areas are very wide open for them. Don't require a lot of gear. Maggot Lair is also 85 in all areas, including the Stony Tomb in Product Diablo 2. It's only in Maggot Lair 3 and LOD. And in... Damn it. Very fun. Ancient Tunnels is always 85, though. We're also going to be showing off Ancient Tunnels, which is another great farm, of course, as well. The weakness of Ancient Tunnels and Maggot Lair is a little bit harder to find, I think, than the Stony Tomb. But you can find them. Finding the hole is always a problem in life. Today, got it pretty fast. Nice Zon, dude. Nice Zon. What's up, Pocket? How you doing? Nice Zon, dude! I think it's a nice Zon. I don't know about you, but I think it's a nice Zon. Actually, you know what? For the purposes of this guide, let's just kind of, you know, continue to do the Maggot Lair bit here. No problem. So the way this build operates is you put some Valkyries in front of you. And get your attack speed up. A bow with cold pierce, cold damage, you name it. Just fire freezing arrows. Freezing arrow is insane. It's got a long range. You could also use cold arrow. Cold arrow is pretty good for concentrated damage, which you can see here. But truth is, it doesn't shotgun, and doesn't quite do as much damage as this ability anyway, unless you max out magic arrow. But even then, freezing arrow is just so good because of how the ability works. Freezing arrow bounces off of the walls, the enemies. Every time it hits a wall or an enemy, it procs its damage number. You might be looking at the damage and be like, 5,000? That's not a lot, Dark Humility. 5,000 isn't a lot at all. That must actually not be that strong. Both the Frost Novas combined with the fact that every time it pierces through something, it does an additional 5,000 damage, or hits a wall, or collides with anything, or through anything. It does bonus. It does the damage again. It ends up doing so much damage. In some cases, enemies really packed together, you can get like crazy damage, like 20 to 30,000 in the center of a pack. It just does so much damage. So yeah, it's no joke. It's no joke. The 5,000, the 4.8k, which is what I'm wearing right now, is the sheet damage. But honestly, you can see once you get your 100% pierce and you have your sheet damage around 5k, it's just destroying everything. One shots and the two shots, even in maps, are real. It's rough. It's just rough. Yes, 5k each time it explodes after it passes through everything. That is correct, Unlucky Squid. We have another knowledgeable person in the chat right now. Not to say all you guys aren't knowledgeable, but knows. So yeah, it does 5k on impact, but then it does another 5k every time it passes through anything or passes onto something. It's a ton of damage. It's a ton of damage. That's why 100% pierce is mandatory. We will talk about that, though, once we get to the stats. Talk about why this build gets as strong as it does and how to make this build as strong as it is. Don't find yourself feeling like this build's garbage, deceiving yourself into thinking otherwise. That's right. You know, freezing monsters is amazing. You know, on hardcore, even though I don't have a shield on this build, I would actually consider this build to be at least fairly safe for hardcore. I'm not going to say it's insanely safe because, once again, you don't have a shield. Your DR might not be as high as some other builds as well, depending on the gear setup you go for. However, what I'm going to say is that this character, it's pretty strong. It's honestly, like, really solid for hardcore, for the most part. For the most part. I'm not going to pick up that rare amulet. It's not high enough level. But everyone knows that the real reason I don't pick up the rare amulets is to trigger chat. No. Chat, you guys are fine. Yeah, like, you're constantly freezing all the enemies. Anything that's not cold immune, you can freeze. It actually makes it really safe. You can be destroyed by ranged monsters before you're able to freeze them, or if they're cold immune, but it's such a safe build just overall. It's just such a safe build. Alright, so right now, I forgot to get the Lost City warp on this character, so oops! Rather just didn't bother. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go looking for Ancient Tunnels, which is one of the most staple areas for a cold build. One thing to note is these are cold immunes here. There aren't a lot of cold immunes you can break with Infinity. And if you can, most of them are elite monsters that acquire cold immunity purely through their stats, like magic resistant or spectral hit or something like that. So most of the immunities you can break are like that, but some monsters that are always cold immune you can break, including those infidels there, so that's nice. There's Ancient Tunnels, yeah, can you tell? Mostly been doing maps with this character, so haven't paid attention to this. Where are they? Hello, TMCK. How you doing, man? What's up, buddy? How you doing, Unlucky Squid? How's your night? Smart man. Smart cookie. Alright, so there it is, the Ancient Tunnels. So this is actually her strongest area in LOD for this particular build. So it's no surprise it's also a strong area if you actually have the Lost City warp in Ancient Tunnels. I mean in PD2. So in LOD, if you get a warp spawn right next to here in single player, this build's actually incredibly strong in here. Absolutely just blowing everything up. But see, in PD2, they actually made this build even stronger in PD2, which makes it even more ridiculous. But we'll talk about that a bit. For maps, she's totally map ready. She's got her damage. Just create what you can do, really. Ah, Dinner of Champions. I like that Dinner of Champions. It's a good champion. Very good stuff. Oh god, that's nice desync there. Not running that fast. Surprised I actually desynced there. What the heck? Anyway, Ancient Tunnels is another one of those areas, along with Maggot Lair, that rarely has cold immunes, and if it does, it's because the elites spawn with those modifiers like Spectral Hit and whatnot. If you have Infinity, you can break cold immune even most of the time, even when that happens. So there's almost no cold resistance at all in here. It just all explodes. Amazing. Amazing, man. Amazing. Well, anyway. Ancient Tunnels is always going to be an amazing stop-off. Remember, you can find any item in the game from those 85 areas in LOD. Any item at all. From the Elite Packs and from the Champions. So all those areas that we've done in Act 2, very good to frequent this character, even when she's not at full power. And even when you don't have items like Ice or Night Wings, or things like that, or even bow skillers, those are going to be good areas for you. In Act 3, we have some very good options. So I would say our next insanely good option is this one. One thing that's worth mentioning is that you could even stack a lot of gold find on an ice boson, so if you have the ice rune word like I do. And you can actually make her into a pretty decent gold finder. You might notice that ice has 300% gold find on it, which means that's a great start for any gold finding build. Travincal only has Torque as cold immune permanently, and it's very rare to get a permanent cold immune in here with Infinity. Usually you can break Torque with Infinity or Ismail when he's cold immune as well. Unless he gets cold enchant, but it's literally the only situation. So most of the time the cold damage you're just going to be eviscerating Trav, and Trav drops everything. Except for those super rare items in 85 areas. Trav can drop all the basic gear, all the like Storm Shield and Shaco, can drop charms, jewels, gems, runes, jewelry. Jewelry's its specialty, and of course puzzle boxes, Worldstone shards, and of course tons of gold. Of course, it can also drop runes up through Cham, not just any rune. And Travincal is one of my favorite farming spots, period. It's always going to be a great idea for an ice boson to go kill. Alright. Let's go! Alright, next up, we have the River of Flame. River of Flame is usually going to be good, unless you run into Grotesques. That monster is absolutely awful. If you see one of those maps, you might want to re-roll your map, to be honest, because it's really hard to get through those things. In Players 1, it's okay, though. My Mercenary is strong enough, and my Valkyries are strong enough to kill them, but they spawn babies, and, you know, they're cold immune even with Infinity. They're just pretty hard to kill overall. But everything else is pretty easy to kill up through the river. And of course, Chaos is going to be really good. Oblivion Knights are immune to cold, even with Infinity. However, they don't have a lot of health. You can ignore them for the most part. The most annoying thing about them is that they can decrepify you, thus slowing you down. And as you can see, if my Mercenary comes into contact with them, they die in like one shot, so it's not a big deal. This is Players 1, of course. You know, we're on the live server in Players 1. My Season 2 hardcore ice on, which is also my physical boson. So a lot of people ask, you know, I've actually had a lot of comments in the YouTube about, like, are you reusing characters or respecking them? Yes, I am. I have one of each class hardcore on my Season 2 hardcore at the moment. They're all level 90 or higher, and most of them are level 94 and higher, including this one. So we have one of each class. We're going to have a second Paladin soon, though, so that we can make a potential sacrifice to declone, quote unquote, whose entire purpose is to kill declone. We'll see if that's feasible. Ooh, dual H ring, nice. And if he dies to declone, it's not a big deal. We will attempt a smiter kill on declone though. We'll see if that actually works out for us. With Astrians, I know, with that crazy Astrians he found. Well, it'd be sad to lose it trying to kill declone with it, but then again, what else are you going to use it for anyway? It's such a crazy find we found, but... the truth of the matter is, it's got to get good use, you know. Astrians can take declone? Supposedly, yeah. It might not be the best idea, but you know, we'll try. I found a 3-socketed Astrians, 4 Pecon. It rolled 3 sockets when I corrupted it. So as you can see, she destroys chaos for sure. And remember, if you don't have infinity, use an Act 1 Fire Arrow Mercenary and get that Vigor Aura. You can even get a Act 1 Cold Arrow Mercenary when you don't have a lot of gear. And you can put Harmony Bow on that Mercenary, which is a pretty cheap rumored. And you can get Meditation and Vigor at the same time on your Ice Boson, which is not a bad idea for a character that bleeds a lot of mana. It's definitely useful if you don't have a lot of life leech early in the game. So, even Diablo, not much of a problem, right? Boom. Chaos is another one of those 85 areas that can drop any item. Also because of Stormcasters and super unique monsters and minions, it happens to be very good for farming runes as well, just like Travincal. Once you're powerful enough to do Chaos, I'd definitely recommend it. That, of course, are Maggot Lair, Stony Tomb, and Ancient Tunnels. Alright. I could show the standard clickable farming on this build, but honestly, I feel like it's kind of a waste of this build to do clickables with her. Also considering that we're playing hardcore early game, you're going to be using a bow at all times, so running around where there's like Might Aura in there, those monsters hit pretty hard. Just running around and clicking and not killing the monsters might not be the best of ideas. It's okay though. That's pretty much it for Act 4. Act 4 is usually pretty simple, right? I don't recommend keep farming, not enough mobility compared to some other builds. And I mean, you could do it with the Vigor Aura for sure, but Cold isn't really the best damage source for that. And no bosses as well. No boss farming particularly where you have to teleport, because once again, not enough mobility to get to Mephisto or Andy. As you can see from that last fight though, she does just fine against bosses, especially Diablo, so she can definitely do Chaos just fine. Alright, you're not going to want to do any Eldritch or Shank shenanigans on her because they are all cold immune. So that's actually an area you're going to want to avoid. And then she can still do Pindleskin though. Pindleskin is usually poison immune and that's it. So if you want to farm Pindleskin, there you go. Disappeared, right? Pindleskin drops 2 items always, he's a super unique. Great farm. You can just spam games, just can keep spamming games and enter the portal and kill them. Very great way to farm up your gear for sure. Yeah, see, this is one of those key farms. Probably not going to want to do that. Let's see. Honestly, probably the last area in LOD I'd even go for is Worldstone Keep, which most of my builds you've seen that I posted here on my YouTube. This is build number 11, I believe. But most of my builds you've seen can always farm Worldstone Keep. It just depends on the spawns. This build's really good for it, though, because there's a lot of high density and a lot of flares. This character really takes advantage of high density very well. Because, once again, every time you pass through an enemy, you do more damage. So your damage just gets higher the more of them there are. And it's one of the reasons why she's an excellent mapper as well. And why I would consider her to be at least a low A tier build. Maybe not a super high-end S tier build, but definitely better than most A-tier builds when it comes to mapping and just density clearing in general. And as you can see there, we have no cold immunes in this particular spawn, so you can really see how strong we are. We just absolutely rip through anything. Souls get destroyed as well from a range. It's actually pretty safe and hardcore against souls because you can kill them from so far back. And it just gets totally destroyed. Once again, we're going to do maps after we finish with the LOD areas. We're going to go over her best maps in order of tier 1 to tier 3. And then, of course, you know, we'll post once again the overall tiers in the description. And in the first pinned comment as well. After that, we'll go over, after the maps, we'll go over the stats, the skills, the gear, and just conclude with some comparison information and what this build is really good at in general. Alright, here we go. What's up, Wraith Victor? Hey, Elo's GG, man! 99! Very nice. You gonna do it again, or are you gonna wait till next season now? Congrats, man. Always takes a long time to get to 99, whether it's hardcore or softcore. Very sick, man. One thing to note about Worldstone keep farming, I think that's underrated if you're making currency, is they actually did slightly increase the odds of finding a Worldstone shard in Worldstone keep. Why? Because it's Worldstone keep, so it makes logical sense thematically to have Worldstone shards drop more often. You're slamming materials in the Worldstone keep itself. So if you want to farm a lot of Worldstone shards, this is not a bad idea. It's an extra incentive to farm Baal, I suppose, in Worldstone. I do notice whenever I farm here, I find at least one, not multiple of those things. It's pretty much guaranteed. Whenever I do one of these videos, and I do this area, it's always guaranteed to find those in there. Alright, so don't get hit by too many balls, especially if you're amped like I am now, and they have fanaticism. It's a pretty dangerous monster even for this character, so make sure you're bobbing and weaving. Don't get too punch drunk, otherwise your character might not wake up from the coma. Look at all those Worldstone shards. I found like 3 of them just walking in here and just popping some monsters. Really underrated, I think. Especially when people do pay quite a bit for these sometimes. It's actually a brand new thing in Season 2. Season 2 they made it to where Worldstone Keep drops Worldstone shards with a greater frequency than other areas in the game. So they have slightly greater odds in here. Alright, so this is a bad spawn. Sometimes you will encounter Dark Lords and some other cold immunes in Worldstone Keep, and this is probably the worst one you can encounter. At this point, you kind of just gotta let your Mercenary kill them. They're immune, you can't break them with Infinity. Or you can lead them out. If you don't make Valkyries and you take out your Mercenary, you could always walk them outside the throne. But, you know, we can kill them. It's not too big of an issue. The Hell Witches are also kind of nasty, but at least they die in one shot. Those Dark Lords are a bit physical resistant, so it's kind of terrible. They heal too, yeah. Well, I mean, we kill them fast enough, but yeah. Yep, the throne too. Yep. So, as you can see here, with splash damage plus freezing arrow, even wave 2 is no match for this character. This character literally evaporates waves, like they literally just die in one shot, like 2 shots. It's not a bad character to run Baal with, so long as your Mercenary does a decent amount of damage. Once again, those mages are also permanent cold immune, so there's definitely some cold immune problems in here. Baal's always been best for lightning characters for that reason, not cold areas, not cold characters, but still very solid. You can definitely farm it on this character just fine. Yup. What's up? I grind this. How you doing? We are making a guide right now if you're wondering what's going on. We just came in. And we're also doing some farming, of course, at the same time. Today is the last day we're going to be playing this character for a little bit. Then, of course, tomorrow we're going to make a new character. We're going to make a new paladin. Alright, so, not the best boss killer, and against Baal it's definitely not insane, but... You can get him up against a wall, that would actually be kind of ideal. Also, we're going to be glugging lots of potions, because we're not leeching off of the monsters very well right now. Damn. Alright, not bad though. You know, it's not a terrible kill. I would say the physical boson is definitely way better. Way better at killing bosses. We can talk about that at the end though, kind of the general comparison between the two. If you're struggling to figure out whether you should make a physical boson or this build or not. Kind of talk about the differences and what they're strong at, what they're weaker at. Alright, so that's it for the LOD demo session and showing off all the areas she's strong in LOD, even without insane gear. Once you get some decent gear though, especially Infinity though, or just simply a lot of facets and negative cold res in general from items like Wiz and Draw, Ice, Nightwings, you really want to take a dive into the maps. So without further ado, let's do her best tier 1. Bastion Keep isn't super far behind Ruins, I would say, but Bastion Keep definitely has a slightly more annoying cold immune, and the Harpies or the Witches are definitely a little bit more dangerous, even at range without a shield. So we're going to do Ruins. This is a pretty basic Ruins map, I would say. Ruins only has one cold immune, which is the Hierophants, which are these dudes right here. Only one possible cold immune spawns in here. Sometimes they don't even spawn at all, which is nice. You can see this character is very well suited to this area. This map even has some zombies. Shouldn't be maximum life though, so I think there's a little bit of cold absorb if I remember right, but it's not a lot, so you shouldn't even see the difference. You do so much damage, it just doesn't matter. Alright. So yeah, there are some cold resistant monsters in here, so I recommend in here, if you're gonna do Ruins, you probably should use the Infinity approach if possible. There's some maps where you probably don't have to, but we'll talk about that though at the end. Or when we get to the maps. Alright, here we go. Wow. Oh, it doesn't matter much. Spill just slaughters everything. Everything gets turned into a block of ice. Everything gets the block of ice, the ice cream treatment. The popsicles. They're so helpless against you if you're firing directly at them. The freeze doesn't last as long in LOD as in LOD, I think. But it lasts long enough to where if you continually fire at them, they can't move. With a decent amount of attack speed. So maps with their higher density is pretty good. This is probably the weakest map we're going to be demoing though, so buckle up your seatbelts. The next 3 maps we're going to be doing are, well, no, not the next 3. The 2 tier 3s we're going to be doing are pretty insane. I got some 300 density maps lined up for that. So you can see her at some of her most glorious exploits. Oh, nice. A Rihanna barb, a singer barb, huh? Nice. Do it. I'm glad to hear you've come back, Ryan. Glad to see you, man. Yeah, I'm sure. I think a lot of people did, to be honest. What have you been up to lately, man? I mean, you know, seasons die out. It's a thing. We've made a lot of stuff though, probably since you quit. So there's a lot of fun stuff here on here. Yeah, as you can see, even on hardcore, I don't feel danger being very aggressive with this build because I can freeze the enemies. Even with my normal bows on, I can kill them pretty fast and I can knock them back. Well, this character has freeze. So Ice on has freeze, physical bows on has knockback with wind force. Or Bariza, it also freezes target. So in general, as long as you have one of those, you know, you can be pretty aggressive with these builds. Get right up in there. Get maximum range on your abilities. Pump the monsters. I don't know if this build is underestimated. Maybe for the late game it is, but I know a lot of people build it in the early game. That's a good thing. It's very, very strong. Even without Infinity, you can map, so it goes without saying that even without perfect gear, you can also map, but I do recommend LOD areas, I feel like, until you get, like, at least a decent amount of Cold Pierce. Without Cold Pierce, it can be a little bit tougher. Whee! What's up, man? How you doing? Friday night, Rolling Hammer. It's time. It's time, man. It's time. Oh, it's her birthday? Oh, happy birthday, man. What did you say you were? 20, right? 21, you can drink. Oh man. Right? Right? You're a young man, man. Whole life's ahead of you. 33. What? You're supposed to lie, man. Ow, charger zombies. Well, that's definitely a monster to look out for if you have reanimated horde, but you can do maps with the reanimated horde stat though. There's no reason why you can't. You range them from afar, they're not cold immune. One guest monster attribute on maps that's really bad for this character is, which is actually fine for most characters, is the Dark Lord attribute. The vampires, the vampire lords. They're all cold immune, and they're very physical resistant as well. Just like I talked about in the throne there when we encountered them. Doesn't always happen in the throne, but if you see that stat on a map, you should probably avoid it on this character. Otherwise, it's definitely going to introduce not only a new cold immune, but one that is difficult for your mercenary or Valkyries to kill while you're killing everything else. Spell Vamp? You mean like in League of Legends? I mean, they don't need Spell Vamp. This ability leeches off of normal life leech, and if they have Spell Vamp, imagine how OP Sorceress would be. I honestly feel like maybe it's best not to have Spell Vamp, just because, like, then you have to balance against, like, between extreme healing and extreme damage. I think it's better for, like, in order for classes to have identity, there's more like unique statistics. Like, a sorceress can only heal through like killing monsters, for instance, whereas physical damage characters can heal with every hit. And that I guess you could say kind of, I guess, solidifies the identity of the class. The fact that, you know, a sorceress is a high damage character that can't leech as easily. Doesn't have as many options for sustain and regeneration. And it's also more vulnerable to dying just straight up because it doesn't have as much tankiness. And you're also... Imagine Spell Vamp. I mean, Poison Necro is already ridiculous with Life per Kill. It doesn't need Spell Vamp. The build's already insane with Life per Kill, man. Spell Vamp? Spell Vamp. Spell Vamp would just be a joke. Spell Vamp would be crazy. I like how Roland Hammer got us started on this conversation here. Spell Vamp. Yeah, you just fart, kill everyone with your poison gas, and you're always at 100% health. Yep, that's right. Pretty good stuff. It's an awesome build. It's really hard to balance Spell Vamp, I think, in this game. It's an interesting idea, though. It's an interesting thought experiment, I suppose. Alright. So, like I said, she's not bad against bosses. I mean, that's not bad, especially considering how well she does against the archers, since she's able to freeze them and whatnot. But, you know, I would say the physical boson is even stronger in that regard. I'd say this character clears the minions a bit faster, but physical boson destroys bosses so quickly. It doesn't matter. Guided arrow is just so strong. OP, OP! Right. So, as you can see, this map doesn't really provide much resistance for this character. There are Hierophants. It's not a very dense monster, though. It's kind of like Oblivion Knights. If you see Hierophants or Oblivion Knights in any of these maps that she's good at, it's not a big deal. So long as your cold res is decent. Since we have 75 cold res, though, and Pierce, it's pretty strong, though. In general, I don't know what happened there. I think we dropped. Yeah, it looked like we were about to drop, so I got out of there. You ever see that in hardcore, by the way? This is a public service announcement from Dark Humility. Do not be afraid to just save and exit immediately, so that if the monsters catch up and they recover, sometimes they'll attack ultra fast and just kill you instantly. So don't give them the chance to do that. The second you see the monsters start running in place or whatnot, just leave the game. Especially in hardcore if you're going to 99. Softcore. Guard your life. Don't die to something like that. Looks like we were dropping randomly there. I don't know why. Rarely have to use potions on this build, just like with the other physical boson, because I have life leech. But since I'm not using multi-shot, I'm not leeching as many monsters simultaneously. And my life leech isn't nearly as good as it is on the other boson. It's okay though. So you might notice that I don't have to use many health potions very often, which is another great feature of this build. You don't even have to use too many mana potions either, as long as you have MPK or mana leech somewhere on the build as well. Or both. Both is nice. Both would be nice. I don't have MPK on this version of the build, but can definitely get it pretty easily. Alright, so this map's pretty much done. It done. It done. Servers just had a fart there, and, you know, ended up on the other side of the flat server. What can you do, man? So yeah, I mean, sometimes you do need to use a health potion here and there. But if you're playing aggressively, even like this, you usually don't have to. It'll be fine. Alright, so it's her best tier 1, Ruins of Viz-Jun. Also decent in Bastion Keep, but we talked about that. I wouldn't do... there's actually 2 cold immunes, the Faithfuls and the Frozen monsters in Horizons, so I would stay away from that one on this build. Alright, next up, we have Blood Moon. Now, Blood Moon is really good for a lot of characters. I showed it in almost every guide because seeing a monster kill Blood Moon, a build kill Blood Moon is a pretty good measuring stick in Season 2 to just how strong the build actually is in general, because the map is just that good. That being said, though, this is really the only tier 2 I'd recommend on this character. All the other tier 2s have some nasty cold immunes, like Phlegethon. It's a shame that Phlegethon has its Hellcats, otherwise it'd be pretty nice. Or other tier 2 problems like Area Battlefield. Yeah, Torohan's absolutely atrocious on this character because it has another very bad cold immune in it. Which is the Crush Beast, so I wouldn't do that at all. That being said, though, this is a very solid map. So let's jump right into her best tier 2, and really the only tier 2 I would personally bother doing on any cold character. I feel like the other cold as an element is going to struggle on any other tier 2, really, in one way or another. Struggling for surviving. Frost Nova Sorceress can kind of get away with some of these other maps just because she has teleport, so she can just skip a mob she can't kill, which is nice, but since we don't have teleport on this character, we're definitely going to stay away from those areas. Alright, so as you can see, it's almost comical how fast we destroy the cows. Bam! Slaughters hordes of them in seconds. Absolutely blown to smithereens. It's not smithereens though because it's not fire. Frozen into ice shards. Vaporized. I guess that's another good word. This character vaporizes cows. This is definitely one of the reasons why I would consider this an S tier build in Season 2. Yeah, if anyone that's watching this guide right now doesn't want to wait for me to show my gear, type exclamation...
You can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken.
Type exclamation S2 HC Ice Zone. It's the command in the stream title. The other one is for my LOD version. I have an LOD Ice Maiden as well. It also works in LOD for certain things. WM Dragon, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the Cult of Xanadur's Day. Absolutely. Cool down glug, let's go. Okay, so it's an absolute slaughterfest in here. You get right up next to the cow packs and you just freeze them and just blow them up. Icy explosions. No problem. The more density in here, the better. This is actually not a super dense map, so you get like 200% plus density in here. It'd be nice. Get bigger cow packs. More cows, the better. The more density, the more this character will feed off of it. You'll even kill them faster, even if there's more of them. That's how this build works. Every single monster Freezing Arrow passes through will proc that 5k damage every time it passes through, and when it lands on top of a wall or an enemy. So much damage. That's a confusing explanation, but anyway, all you need to know is that sheet damage is very deceiving for this ability. Anyway, here we go. Alright, I want to get away from that physical immune, cold immune cow. It's pretty unfortunate. It rolled stone skin and it rolled enough cold immunity that I can't even break it with infinity. It doesn't always happen that way. I think it rolled cold enchant, so I can't break it under any conditions. If it rolled spectral hit or magic resistant, I'd be fine. Alright, we're gonna revive our Valkyries. I could have 3 Valkyries with this build, but only temporarily. I have exactly 30 skills on my offhand right now. But the game will check for that and be like, nope, you don't have 30 skills on your main hand, so bye-bye Valkyrie. Get him! At least that's what it appears to be doing. So yeah. Normally cows can be challenging for a lot of characters to kill. This is one of those maps I feel like the Ice Zon is better at than the Physical Zon. And that's because the cows just have so much HP. But because every time you pass through one of them, you're doing that 5k damage. You're doing like 30k into the center of these cow packs, which is just absurd. And since, you know, we have enough cold res to drop their res to 0, they have no resistance. They're just getting utterly exploded. This is one of those maps the Ice Boson will definitely outperform the normal Boson in. Even without infinity, so long as you get enough negative res, negative 50 specifically. We'll talk about that when we get to the gear options. So you can actually do this map with a Vigor or a Mercenary if you want, which will allow you to move around a bit faster from pack to pack. And it'll of course also give you a higher attack speed frame using a Faith Runeward on the Act 1 Fire Arrow Vigor Mercenary. So you can even be even stronger in here potentially with a different version of the build and with better items. Here we go. Utterly wrecked. Yeah, it's not utterly wrecked. Utterly wrecked. It's utterly wrecked. Utterly. Gotta emphasize utterly. Utterly milked. The cows are being utterly milked for items. We're milking them for everything they got. That's right. Get the cow puns in there while you can. Get them in there while you can. Are you a robot? Nope. I'm recording a YouTube video right now. I just started my stream a couple hours ago. If you're wondering about in general, I tend to take my break. I do take a break, usually, one in the middle of my stream. And I eat before and after, and I take the other breaks. I know it's kind of weird because I think it's more common for people to take like food breaks and things in the middle of their stream. I do not. I like to have one nice continuous stream for the most part. And I'll take care of myself before and after. In the middle, it's optional. Don't worry. I got a water redemption so people can force me to drink water when they're concerned about my health. Yo! 1,000 Xenobites, baby. What's up, E-Hog? How you doing? What's up, Tuesdays? This build guide will be on YouTube along with all my other guides under my PD2 guide section, of course. Always check it out. Another brilliant S-tier guide. So, one weakness you might have noticed of this build is that it doesn't have a ton of magic find. I have 250, which is okay. I did find a lot of really sick unique finds yesterday. We'll see what happens in this video guide today, but if you have at least like 100, which I almost do with no MF, you can get at least a decent amount of MF in maps with higher MF, which is nice. So it's not bad, but it's not like she's going to be winning any awards for insane amounts of magic find. It's really hard to get MF on this build because most of your gear options your best gear options just don't have magic find. And to really get that pierce up, you have to sacrifice Isrunes for facets and things like that, so it can definitely be just a little challenging. So notice that even when there are cold immunes, my Mercenary and my Valkyries destroy, which is very important to the discussion of Infinity Mercenary versus Faith Mercenary. 7 versus 8 frame attack and the increased cold pierce you get off of Infinity. We'll talk about all that stuff though. For Boson, like normal Boson, I don't think there's much of a competition. Once you get to late game and you can afford all the rune words, you definitely want an Act 1 Mercenary, but this build is kind of different. Partially because you can't break all the immunities and there's some other dynamics involved. I can't break all the cold immunes, so having that Mercenary and having the Mercenary along with the Valkyries is very good for killing them as I isolate the cold immunes by killing everything else around them. The Mercenary does a ton of damage, but an Act 1 Mercenary does not. But we'll further the discussion when we talk about the gear and different Mercenary options. When we start the gear section, which we'll do fairly shortly here. Got some more map demo to do though. We'll do some full demos just so you can see how much power this character has. It's a really fun character. Once you have enough Pierce to do this in Blood Moon, it's gonna be sick for you for sure. Trade me some jewels, really? Absolutely. You can definitely trade me some jewels soon. When you're doing your next level 1 push tomorrow, man, tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. It's always Saturday, 1 PM PST if you want to join one of our level 1 pushes. However, I think tomorrow might be the last one. I don't know. We'll see. Hey, Sci-Fi, how you doing, man? Mamma mia! Mamma mia! Get him. I don't know, I played... So if I would stream, couldn't sit 2 hours? Oh no, that's understandable. Most people probably can't Bronco, but I can, so... I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm fortunate that I can sit in one spot for a while. I can't sit for 8 hours straight though. Normally I'll have to get at least some kind of a break, but it depends. You dropped a Cham? Nice. That's actually really sick. Where'd you find it? Doing some LOD rune hunting. Nice. You guys just came in. We're in the middle of my Ice Zone guide here, and we are in the mapping segment. Showing you how powerful she is in her very best maps. So after this, we're going to get into tier 3s. Now, our tier 3 maps that I have chosen today are insane. Normally I don't do such insane maps for demo purposes, but since this character thrives off of density so well, I thought it'd be kind of cool to show you guys how much damage, how effective she is when the density is at its very highest. We're going to do I think a 350% density, 360% density River of Blood, and a 300% density Ancestral Trial. Ancestral Trial has no cold immunes, River of Blood has Oblivion Knights. That's it. Which is a low density cold immune enemy that has very little physical resistance, which is good when you're Mercenary and your Valkyries can kill them. It sounds painful, man. Ooh, Arcane. Very nice. Arcane Power Farm, huh? Are you doing the Arcane Power Farm, or you just find it farming keys or something? I like hearing about that Arcane Power Farm, man. Real stalwarts on my stream know all about that. I'm gonna have to post some of those clips on YouTube too, so people can see. Some clips from our 5,000 Arcane Run experiment. Oh, that's gonna be good. I do plan on getting that done shortly. Yeah. This is on Shreds. Oh, she is a monster for sure. This is an S tier build, man. This is not a joke build. I tell people, man. I always mention freezing arrows on. People say, is Bozon one of her strongest builds? Yes, but so is the other one. So is the other Bozon. Well, okay, there's also Fires on, but you know, we'll ignore that one for now. Tier Haunch. Well, we haven't really found anything too insane yet. Maybe the tier 3s with the crazy density will show us a crazy item. We'll see. Nah, well, that's cool. We'll have one guide video or no crazy item drops. That'd be pretty cool. Just show people that I am human too. I don't have a special streamer server. It's just a meme. It's just a conspiracy theory. People know the truth. The truth, I say. DH Lightning Sork running Arcane. I think it is an incredible gameplay, personally. I really do. I think it's incredible gameplay. Alright, so there's not a lot more left to really do in here. There might still be a decent amount of cows in the middle. Let's see here. About time to move on to tier 3s, right? Right. That being said, I would personally say that Blood Moon is her strongest map overall. So not just her strongest tier 2, but her strongest map overall. Cows are very dense. They're very densely packed, which is what you want for the damage on this ability. And it really, this map might be in a lot of builds top 5, but for this character, it really is her strongest map. It really displays her power very beautifully in a level 88 area, but she definitely has tier 3s that I would even argue are stronger than any of her tier 1s. So her tier 3s are definitely close seconds I'll have to look at them in a second here. Really, really crazy for sure. Here we go. Ooh. Co-rune, nice. Found a co-rune from cows. You're Swedish. Know what that means. Not, well, I don't know. Alright, anyway. Rune. I got Burjaw Sur and those 8 Aura Templars today. Ooh. Ooh, very nice. We just found a facet. Okay, well, we definitely found something now. Alright, this is for chat. 3 to 5% damage, -3 to 5, -5 res. Lightning, fire, cold, or poison. What will the facet roll? Get it, get it, get it. Go, go, go. Rainbow facet guesses. Get him in the stream. The Worldstone shard. So. This map gets absolutely blown to bits. The right stats, you can run this map somewhere between like 17 to 20 minutes. Absolute nutty stuff. This map's probably going to be a bit closer to 20 minutes here. And guess we'll leave that one alone. Go pick up the co-rune. And yeah. And when the density is lower, she's still very strong, but there's definitely, you know, she's not quite as strong. Get that density up as high as you can. One of those characters that definitely thrives off of density, even more so, I'd say, than a lot of builds that thrive off of density. And that piercing attack that procs every time it passes through something. Freezing arrow, which is so good. Yeah, when you get this kind of density, you can just see how strong it is. There's a lot of builds that would struggle with that. This is not one of them. Alright. Alright, let's see what it is. Let's do it. Oh, wait. I have to ID it. Yeah, I was close to like 20 minutes there. It's pretty insane. I don't even have speed. Hello! Dang! We always get an insane item with one of these guides. We always get an insane item with one of these guides. Always. 5/5 Fire Die Facet. That is, I believe, the most valuable facet in Project Diablo 2 at the moment. Damn. Alright. Well, you know, you can't go wrong sometimes. You can't go wrong. That's just straight up beautiful right there. Alright, 5/5 Fire Die Rainbow Facet. Let's get that on our drops today. Very nice. Well, that's our first insane drop so far today. Very good. Alright. Yeah, yesterday we had a lot of things. We had a ton of high runes yesterday off this character. Ton of very good runes. And some other uniques as well, some very solid ones. That one's really good though. Very nice. I'd say that one's worth putting up there. What's up, Plausible? How you doing? Yeah, that's a sick drop. Did anyone even guess that? I think a lot of you guys... Oh, Fano guessed it, man. The streamer server coming in hot. No, it's the server, huh? Hey, do you still want to sell me that Primeval Soul? Or nah? Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so here we go. Now for the tier 3s, chat. We've made it. These tier 3s are absolutely bonkers. I both corrupted and used heroic buffs on them, which requires a standard of heroes. Just found by doing Ubers. Doing a lot of Ubers with our Zealers, I'm sure you probably know from all the Zealer updates I've made on this YouTube. but we have some crazy ones. I think we're gonna want to do her not as great tier 3 first, and then we'll do her better tier 3 second. So we're gonna do 2 tier 3s she's very strong at, so this is very good for leveling and all kinds of items in general. This is a 366 density, 40 experience, 100 plus magic find map. Doesn't have any maximum life, and it has no cold absorb as well. So this is an excellent map for this character, including also having cows packed in there as well. This map is, I think it's more than excellent, honestly. It's really hard to get those stats on that. 300%, just about 330 MF ghost map. Ghosts have a bit of cold res, but I have so much cold pierce it doesn't matter. And we'll have be able to kill this map pretty well too. Doesn't have any problematic stats as well. Those are some juicy maps indeed. So without further ado, we're going to want to pop into one of these. So let's do River of Blood first. I really wanted to do these maps on her to show you just how she really loves density. Some characters don't need density, they can prioritize other stats. Look how many monsters there are. Holy moly. Almost 400% density. Let's see if you find any other GGs in this one. Blood Moon map definitely putting forth that facet there is nice stuff. So yeah, this is crazy density. So much so that there's actually a decent amount of Oblivion Knights, which is actually a little bit of a problem, but that's okay. We're not going to run into it too much. Alright, so those are Might Aura, but we can range them from afar, and we can freeze them, so we don't have to fear them too much. We have DR, so we're fine. We did just find a Razor Tail, okay. Razor Tail, Jade Talon, Tarnhelm, my goodness. Map's just pumping at items. I don't want to pick up most of them at this point, though. Yeah, if anyone wants to trade me any items or wants any items off the free list, let me know for after the guide. You're gonna have to wait a while, though. Probably still more than an hour at this point, so I'd say definitely more than an hour. So just let me know. Okay, overburdened. Yeah, look at this. This is just crazy amounts of items and runes. Make sure to target the archers first so your Valkyries and your Mercenary don't die. Or so you don't die potentially, but I'd say it's more for them, to be honest. You got a lot of dodge, you got some DR on this version of the build, so I'm pretty okay. Alright, sounds good. Just let me know. Friggin' no. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, this build is nutter balls. There's a Ko-rune. Holy moly. I can wait till he kills some of the cold immunes. So you can see that the density is just so good for her. It's really getting us maximum damage output here. Oh, definitely took some damage there. Watch the archers. This much density, it can definitely be a bit of a problem. We got like hundreds of archers in one spot. Okay. Okay. Move Zoltan, cool. Some archers. Don't want that map. Do it on the ground. Even if we don't find anything too crazy in this map, wow. What a map, dude. Juicy experience, man. The experience... I kind of wish I had my numpad 7 to look at the experience right now. But I don't have it on my keyboard. I need to use a virtual keyboard and I'm too lazy to pull it up, so we're fine. I really would want to see that though. As crazy as this map is, it will probably be over sooner than we think. Sad face. Such a good map. I think the craziest map I've done to date, though, is a 400 density Throne of Insanity, though. It was actually almost 400. I think it was 399. And in order to roll that, you need perfect rolls on the corruption, and you need perfect rolls pretty much on the initial roll. Just gonna roll up to 300. There we go. This one's pretty good, though. No complaints at all. So yeah, the Oblivion Knights are a little bit of a problem, but you might notice as I'm killing the monsters, they're getting isolated, and my Mercenary is picking them off. This is definitely one of the features of this particular approach to the build, which I feel like is a very good approach for killing tier 3s. Another maps with higher cold resistance and just higher amounts of cold immunes in general. Oh my goodness, there's so many. Those are high cold resistance mobs. We have a lot of cold pierce on the Infinity version of this build. Jeez, there's so many of them. So, as long as their missiles pass through Avanos, he'll die pretty fast. The maximum damage. It's okay if English is not your native English, that's fine, man. Death and Death Cleaver at 2 sockets. Death is better than Death Cleaver, I would say. Unless it's like Ethereal. It has too much damage. If that's what you're asking, Dragon. Oath is good for cheap build, and Stone Crusher is also good if it's F. Or if... This... What? Why are those cold immune? That's actually confusing to me. Alright, let's try to stay going in a linear fashion on this map here. There's too many monsters, man. As you can see, she's not too disturbed by that fact. Let's find the archers here. Pick them off. Oh my goodness. Look at how many items. Even for the loot filter, this is actually a struggle here. Jesus. So many. You just switch targets too if you get surrounded. Freezing the monsters really gives you a huge advantage. Wow, look at all that. Ooh, that's a nice map. There we go, juicy. Wouldn't be surprised if we find a ton of maps in here though. I guess the flesh beast babies can also be immune to cold. That's not a big deal, they die very fast. What's up, 314? How you doing? Is S Stormspire any good? I have one. I wouldn't say it is, but it's decent. On softcore, you could use it for like two-handed power strike or something. That could be a good build with it. I wouldn't go two-handed on softcore though. You could also use it for Whirlwind Barb for the memes to proc static field constantly. I actually went Dream Stormspire just to test in closed beta. It was okay. Not as strong as like just pure physical damage approaches, but yeah. It's okay. So yeah, she thrives off of density. All these these tightly packed halls here are exactly what she wants. Only the cold immunes remain, all said and done. Wow, dude. What are you talking about? Okay. What's up, Bloody Cave? How you doing? We'll go back this way in a second here. So when I'm amped, I definitely want to watch out for archers. It could be bad. Even with this much DR, it's definitely possible we can get popped like this. But luckily this build allows us to play fairly aggressively, even on River of Blood, so it's nice. Dead Crown, let's go! Ah, speak of the devil! Speak of the devil. Well, I mean, I would have been surprised if we didn't find one super ultra rare item in here. On that note, we also found a BK ring, which is also insanely rare. Stormspire. There it is. There's a Nana Stormspire. Now, is this item any good? Not really. Pick it up there just to say we picked it up for now. Yeah, Death Cleaver I would say is better than Stone Crusher, by the way. Both can be better than just a normal Death Cleaver if it's a good one. It's all about that F, man. That F is just so good. Hello? Alright, well, we just found a very rare but useless item. Herodrum Scarab. That's a fun item, right? Damn, we found all kinds of stuff in this map. It's too bad, but the dungeons are not a great thing to do in hardcore. No siree. But, found a Stormspire. It's insanely rare. I'm not gonna want it though, because the non-F one's pretty much useless. And let's continue it. Wow, so many charms. Alright. We're not even done with this map. This map is absolutely insane. It's gonna take longer than a normal tier 3, that's for sure. But considering how many monsters we'll have killed, 100% worth it. At level 94, I think we'll get like a few ticks of XP in here. Just one map. Pretty crazy. 366% density. Exclamation filter, Omega Man. This is my private loot filter made by A Development. A Development is a legend for sure. Check him out. Right, so basket case. Yes, I am a basket case. I must find high runes out of baskets. Don't know already. If you just came in, once again, we're recording a guide for YouTube on the Ice Zone today. We're in the midst of doing that right now. Got some insane tier 3s to show off here for her. Yeah, as you can see, the Oblivion Knights don't end up being that much of a nuisance. Neither do the flesh spawners. I mean, they pretty much all die instantly, or you can just ignore them. Since we have, you know, cold absorb as well, it's not a big deal. Okay. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Death Runeward can be Eth too. Yep, actually you want to Eth because it rolls indestructible. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Extra strong curse, yeah. Lucky I didn't get cursed there. Alright. That was the one that had the aura from the other side. Come on. Dude, he's running away. This guy has the aura. It's gotta die, man. I mean, he doesn't have to die, but... Another Throne of Insanity map. Yeah, that's how crazy these ultra high density maps are. So crazy, man.
I can't carry anymore.
Right. So it actually won't end up taking too much longer than a normal tier 3, just simply because she's so fast. It's gonna be like plus a couple minutes, honestly. There's a lot of archers up here. You're so good at the density, man. Ow. Come on, handle the spawners, man. Alright. Yeah, so we're isolating the cold immunes, which is making it easy for the Mercenary and everyone else to kill everything else. So that's why you don't have to worry about cold immunes so long as there's like only a couple here and there. Of course, there's actually quite a few in here, but simply because the density is so high. Guess it's the only drawback of super high density in here. Get a few more cold immunes, so it takes a little bit longer for the Mercenary and the Valkyries to pump them up. That's okay. Oh man. The cows are good. So yeah, we can do this map with confidence on hardcore on a character with no shield. We'll go over the stats and skills pretty soon, but... Oh, I was ready to juke that one. I saw that one coming. I saw the multi-shot. Yeah, just be vigilant. sure if you're amped to not get too close to those, or it can be a bad time for sure. Also, we got another one of these. Okay. Soul. Or it's got a griffin. Whoa, really? A Grizz weapon? Grizz weapon is the rarest set item in the game. Unlucky. Very nice. It's tied with the shield. Right, so Plague Bearer. I'm gonna pick that up in a second here. Ooh, +3 lightning. Actually, I could wanna. I normally pick those up, but yeah. Owl's mask. Okay. Dragon Killer. So yeah, this is about 20 minutes, even with almost 400% density. That's insane. Almost all the monsters killed. Mercenary will handle it, no problem. Damn. There she is, guys. We just down to almost 400% density River of Blood. Very nice. This character's no joke, and that density killing ability is no joke. Let me pick this up. I want to see if it's +6. Ah, it's +5. Okay. +5.
Good evening.
Not a huge deal. Alright, so last but not least, we're gonna do what I'd consider to be our strongest tier 3, which is a tier 3 with no cold immunes. The only one in existence, really. That is our Ancestral Trial. Now, this Ancestral Trial is almost as insane as that map we just did, but not quite as insane. Luckily, there's no archers in there, so it's not even quite as dangerous as that last one. We got 2 Throne of Insanity maps, a Razor Tail, Howard Amulet, VK Ring, a Storm Spire, 2 life for kill rip. A lot of stuff in there. The Razor Tail is insane. Nothing as insane as that Fire Facet off the cow map, though. Crazy map, though. Crazy XP. For sure, at the very least. 6 vitality, okay. Anything else I forgot to do? I think we're fine for now. Alright. Last and last but not least. Last map demo. Ancestral Trial. Consider this to be her best tier 3 and her second best map overall. I consider River of Blood to be her second best tier 3 and her third best map overall. The rest of the maps definitely have some various issues. Sewers is also fine, but dying to those magic damage snakes is pretty rough. They did just recently nerf them, but I don't know, there's not a lot of evidence it's going to be good yet, though. Right, so the density in this map is pretty nutty. 300%. Only danger on this map is getting surrounded. So once again, no cold immunes. There is a decent amount of cold resistance in this map, though, so the more pierce, the better on this map, I would say. Just because there's no cold immunes doesn't mean you don't have monsters with like 80 cold res working about. And in this map, that's definitely the case, I think. There you go. Feel free, anyone in the chat, if you have any questions about the build as I'm showing it off, or once we go over the stats and the gear, feel free to field any questions so that this demo / guide video is as good as possible for this character. I do forget things sometimes in my videos as well, so always good if, you know, more information the better. Alright, so Ancestral Trial, insanely good map. The Stormcasters and Ghosts in this particular map, it's pretty insane for finding runes, so we'll see if we can find a high rune in here. Really good loot tables for that on those monsters. Maybe all our high runes are yesterday, though. Did find Stormspire though. We'll pick up the rings. One thing to note about this map though is these monsters are physical immune, so if you do get something like that, it's cold enchanted and physical immune. That can be a bit problematic, but you could just skip them and just leave them behind. Cold immune here and there isn't going to hurt too much, even if they are lead packs and whatnot. Mercenary will handle them. You can break some of those light cold immunities that appear from the elites, but yeah, it can be tough sometimes. Okay, Chris. GG. You're thinking multi-shot, but this is convincing. Multi-shot is very good. It has advantages over this build. We'll talk about it, though. Talk about it. There's also advantages to going some version of this build. For sure. Multi-shot is an S-tier build. This is an S-tier build, so Bosons in Project Diablo 2 Season 2 are looking very strong. Of all stripes. Fire is not as strong as physical or cold, but yeah. Magic is also kind of pathetic still, so Magic Arrow is mostly a secondary ability at best. As I rated it in Tears video I made. We would definitely need some changes to get to that next level, most likely. Legathon, alright. So yeah. People ask, can cold builds do tier 3s? The answer is River of Blood and Ancestral. Most cold builds can also destroy Blood Moon, and Ruins and Bastion are very much doable. So you have a lot of maps you can do as a cold damage character, but you have to be willing to rely on your Mercenary and your Valkyries to kill some stray cold immunes, and to sometimes just skip cold immunes if they're not worth fighting. There might be some cold immunes here and there. In this map, there's no native cold immunes at all, though, so this is an amazing tier 3 for this character. Unless it rolls stats. Yeah, so Nathkill, his Blitter does an insane amount of damage. If you don't have Cold Res, it's gonna do big damages to you. Directly to your face. So yeah, this is 300% density in Ancestral Trial. She doesn't even break a sweat in this one. River of Blood's a little tougher sometimes, because if you get so much density in there, you get a ton of Oblivion Knights, which is a little tougher, but as you can see, it was still not much of a problem. Just, as long as you make your Boson tanky enough to handle it. We'll talk about the hardcore fundamentals soon. We got the builds. After this map, we'll go over the stats, the skills, the gear, in order, like always, and then we'll conclude some final useful information about this build. So yeah, one of the dangers of going too far forward in this map is you can become completely surrounded by ghosts or other monsters, so you gotta be careful. And it's 300% density, that's not going to be a joke. You know, we're going to have to be careful. Those stack on top of you and can kill you. Most part though, it's a run and gun, baby. Run and gun. Okay. I gotta empty some room here in my stash. So one thing I like to do on this build is if you don't have a ton of MPK, I have a ton of Mana Leech, but if you don't have any MPK along with your Mana Leech, you can't leech off of every monster, particularly the skeletons and the undeads. If you see a mana potion, just sometimes pick it up and use it. Since you're running and gunning, it actually is not too hard to do. You might lose like a quarter of a second sometimes, you know? Maybe half a second. Picking those up here and there. This build does consume quite a bit of mana. We'll talk about that with the stats and whatnot, and what stats you're looking for on this build. And for hardcore, softcore, and the ones that are particularly important for hardcore. And 99 pushes. Yep, that's right. Mr. Klein, if you use the command for any of those guides there, you can find the guides directly on my YouTube. Exclamation YouTube is also the command for all my YouTube content if you want to check out all the awesome stuff we've been up to playing Diablo 2 in general. And to keep up to date with all of our stuff, check that out there. Alright, so another really good map, River of Blood. And these high density maps are staying on top of the returning us some really good maps here. Hey, thank you, man. Hope you're enjoying your Friday night, Saturday morning.
I can already tell that I'll be in this forsaken camp.
Unlucky Squid is trying to kill Nath Killed the Numb with negative 34 cold res. Yeah, that might be problems, man. Let's put it this way, if you're in softcore, you would have been dead just looking at him. You're on hardcore. Yeah, he's one-shotting you. Of course he is. That Blizzard's hella strong. I have 75 res, and I have Cold Absorb, and he's still able to do a decent amount of damage to me. He's no joke. Just imagine, man. Just imagine. I think he can one-shot you with his Ice Arrow for sure. We're actually about to get to Nath Kill the Numb right now on our map, in our end of our area, in our farming demo for the Ice Boson here. About to get to him in a second here. You can definitely kill him with this character. Oh, nice. There we go, a skiller. Sweet. Yeah, it's just fine though. But yeah, you might notice that as long as you don't have any truly nasty stats on this map's pretty nice for this character no matter what, right? Really, truly have to worry about. Alright, we're gonna pull up in this corner here because there's so much density. Probably kill the other monsters before we worry about the boss here. The boss is right here, so... Yep, there he is. Spawning the blizzard monk. Just want to pull out some of this density here. Just clear the area before we worry about the boss. Dodge his blizzards a bit. Revive your Valkyries is necessary. Yeah, I see. And the Mercenary.
A spare weapon, some gold, a small gem is all I want.
Lost Bird.
Equipment you'll need on whatever quest you might.
Alright, so decrep is really shitty.
Don't be shy.
Alright, there we go. I think we finally got him in a good spot, and we took care of the other monsters. What's up, Lost Bird? How you doing? Yeah, if we can pass the arrows through him, like this, and he's preoccupied with killing the Valkyries and the Mercenary, that's ideal. Because he hits really hard if you get anywhere. He jumps on top of you. His ice arrow. Thank you so much, Lost Bird, for 100 small gems, straight to Geet's Gambling Bar. Let's go. What's up, man? It has been. What have you been up to, man? It has been. I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't seen a lot of people lately I haven't seen in a while. People are definitely popping in here and there. I think a lot of people are kind of circling the meat carcass, you know? Kind of like vultures. Birds of, scavenger birds. Waiting for D2R. For something to happen in D2 that's big event and whatnot. You guys are waiting for it. Promise we'll be there though. Yeah, we're grinding right now. Oh, so you're not doing it of your own will. You can't play because of work. Okay, I see. A lot of people are definitely busy with work for sure. For sure. Thank you so much for the 100 small gems though. It's very generous, sir. Oh. Do I miss you when you're not here? Sometimes. Wow, Death's Web Bloody Cape? Do you need to post that in my Discord? That is a sick drop from your first pack today. Put that one in there. Let's get some more GG drops in my garbage dump there. Post them. Alright, so we got Tier Haunch again. So yeah, this character absolutely shreds this map. This is 300% density. No problem. Okay, ow! Okay, I got bitten by one of the spiders, didn't I? Oh no. This character has absolutely no poison res, and we'll explain that at the end here. Absolutely atrocious. Might have to go back and heal it actually if I don't have any antidotes. Let's see if there's any antidotes on the ground actually. That could be pretty huge. No, our health's going down. Okay. We healed through the pain. Fine. What a champion. What a champion. Yeah, the spider poison is very potent, so me not having poison res means if I ever actually get hit by one of those, it's pretty bad. You get wrecked, bro. We got like Blood Moon maps. I think we got 3 Blood Moon maps in this map. We got River of Blood, Pledgeathon, Torahan Jungle. Jeez. The density gets up, man. It gets crazy. It's definitely an interesting strategy, sir. You got a cheap build version? I'll actually explain what kind of gear you can use on a cheaper version of this build. I will. So yeah. So normally this character can even do like 16, 17, even like 15-minute Ancestral Trials. This one's on track to be like 19 minutes, which is insane for 300 density. With almost full clear, of course. This character's insanely going. We're about to finish it though, right here. Alright. What a crazy strong build, am I right, chat? I think this map was increased velocity, so they move pretty fast. Unfortunately, though, never fast enough when you get frozen in place. And the only maps that I would really avoid are the Vampire Lords, but also, of course, Witches. Every other stat's pretty much fine. Too much Cold Absorb is also probably not good. So just be aware of those when you roll your maps. So yeah, there you go. Well, like 18.5 minutes to be honest, but that's crazy. So Ancestral Trial is an amazing map for this character. 100% recommend it. Alright. Well, you know, I actually have a multi-shot bow I also was playing earlier on. I still have her gear too. We also have a multi-shot version of this character. I have one of each class though on hardcore, so I can do a lot of things with these at this point. Alright, so we're about to show it off, man. We're literally about to show it off. However, if you want to see my gear right now, type exclamation S2HC IceZone in the chat. I always have my build commands in my stream title. You can always access those there. Stormson just pulled it up, actually. What a beast, am I right? Okay, so... Alright, chat, that concludes the demo section of our IceZone guide today. Maps and LOD areas. For maps, you definitely have to be stronger. I will also be putting in the first pinned comment and in the description a tier order list of her maps in case you want to know how strong she is versus all the other maps in general. Alright, here we go. Unorganized charms look bad in YouTube guides, but they are organized. They're organized by type. You want me to organize them by shape? 5,000! Xana demands 5,000 bytes to sacrifice. Alright, so here we are. The build. So one thing to note is we're going to go over the stats, the skills, and then the Mercenary, and of course the gear. So let's do it. Alright, so Let's get it. Alright, so stats first. So let's talk about what stats are incredibly important on this character. So, I have enough strength to wear my gear. That's pretty much all you'd ever want on this build is enough strength to wear your gear. I have an upped shaft stop, so it's very demanding on strength. I actually maybe even recommend not upping your shaft stop, but there is a reason to do so if you want to, which is to get more defense. We have 7,000 defense with our Defiance or Mercenary, which is actually not bad. It means that even though we don't have block, the monsters aren't hitting us all the time, so it's actually very good. In addition to dodge, it's actually a very good stat for keeping us alive. You might not notice I wasn't being hit too often, even though I don't have block of any kind on this character, which is very important for hardcore, so that's not bad. Dexterity, I'd also only put enough dexterity to wear your gear. I am wearing a matriarchal bow, which is the fastest Zon only bow that also deals a large amount of damage. So the damage is for the leeching, the physical damage, but the 187 dex is getting us to that wearing this bow. Unlike the physical damage boson, she does not get more damage by pumping more dex, so do not do that. The rest of the points I'd literally probably dump into vitality. You can consider also dumping some other points into energy, especially if you're playing softcore and you have mana leech. You don't want to rely on your mana leech or your MPK as much. You can definitely increase your mana pool and you can get to where you don't have quite as many mana potions. That being said, I would only ever put vitality into the points in hardcore. Our damage is 4.8k on the sheet damage. Arguably at almost 6k if you count the physical damage, but we're not hitting everything with the physical damage, and that's not what's doing almost all the damage. That's for the leech only mostly, mana and the life leech. So it's only 4.8 sheet damage, but you'll see just how crazy that is when it bounces off of things and when it's piercing through enemies. Every time it pierces, it does this damage in an area of effect. So it hits in an area of effect every time it pierces. If you saw like one of those maps like where you see like a bunch of like spheres, it's like all these spheres are going off. Like every time it's just doing that much damage. And in the center of those spheres, you get like 25,000-30,000 damage with its attack. So it's no joke. Once you get the damage this high, it's literally doing that much damage in the core of the monsters, just hitting them super hard. It's really crazy damage, and that's why we're doing a ton of damage. When it pierces through, it does damage twice as well. So when you actually get a pierce, it does damage again. Which is why it's important to pierce through things. Pierce. We're gonna go over that here in a second, but very important. One thing to note, of course, we have pretty good res as well. We just played it in action, making a guide at the moment, and we just did a ton of demo for it. So you're gonna have to watch the VOD or the video when it comes out, or after we're done here, we're gonna show it in action again. But first, we're gonna be going over the stats, the skills, and the gear because we literally just did that. If you just came in, that's what's going on right now. We're going over the abilities because we're making a guide on this character. All right, anyway. All right, what's up, Boxa? How you doing? All right, we got a +1. It's okay. I mean, if you rolled good negative, I think it's more important than the +1 anyway. Okay. All right, anyways, so we have very high res. Now, on softcore, you don't need res as much on a boson of any kind. I've explained this before when I went over the physical boson. However, I really like having high res on hardcore because then you can play very aggressively and you don't have to worry about mages, even if they're cold. I mean, like Hierophants and Ruins, or like the Oblivion Knights and River doing too much damage to you. And you can just pass them no problem and let your Mercenary and your Valkyries take care of them. Res is very good for aggressive gameplay on hardcore, and this bow build is no exception. Poison res, though, is tick damage only, so it's kind of optional. I was not able to get more res in this build. It's just so... You might notice this is my only hardcore build that has any res that is less than 75, pretty much. And yeah, I failed on the poison res. I just can't get more poison res without sacrificing damage. It's really hard. That being said, as long as we don't get hit too often by spiders or other high poison damage, or if we avoid maps with extra poison damage based on physical damage, that's a good idea. That's why I was running no maps with that extra poison damage stat, because we could get chunked really hard in those maps because of the physical damage poison damage conversion, because I don't have it. So definitely look at your map stats if your res isn't maxed, but I try to get as close to maxed on possible. Freezing arrows on, the ice on. Alright, so let's go over the other statistics. So as you can see, my res are just barely maxed. Not a lot of stackage going on there, and we have pretty poor poison res. That being said, though, our damage reduction is solid. This is what you want to see. We have 36% DR. This is very good, especially when you don't have a shield. We have dodge, but we don't have a shield, so we are hit sometimes, and when we are hit, you're going to take a lot of damage. Those archers in River of Blood, you definitely need some kind of DR against them, otherwise you won't have a very long life on this character. Softcore, once again, don't need to worry about this stat quite as much at all. Our Elemental Pierce without Infinity is 33. You definitely want really high Cold Pierce, especially for mapping, because a lot of monsters, especially in your best maps, have a lot of cold res, 80 to 90 cold res in some cases. So 33 plus negative 34 on conviction is 67. With the better Nightwings, I can get way higher. We'll talk about that when I get to my gear. I want as much cold pierce as possible. Since we don't have cold mastery like on a cold sorceress, we don't have a lot of native cold pierce, which means that infinity is actually a viable option for this cold build. Whereas for a sorceress, you're probably not going to need it. Probably just going to need some facets, and you just need cold pierce, and then you could ignore infinity and just not use it. You could use doom, you could use insight, you could use obedience, whatever else you want, because you don't need even more pierce because you're already dropping monsters to 0. Once again, cold immunity is the hardest to break in the game. So you're not usually going for breaking cold immunes. You can break some with infinity, but not. So it's not super important. Okay. Alright, yeah, we have 8 flat cold absorbed from it's not a big deal. Run walk is nice on this build, so if you can get run walk on your skillers or anywhere else in your build, like the options, it's not a bad stat to have, but it's not insanely important. Especially if you run the Vigor version of this build. We have 80 attack speed. 75 is a breakpoint for Matriarchal Bow without Fanaticism. It's a frame 8 attack speed, which is almost the fastest frame. Fastest frame would require 142. I recommend hitting at least 75, at least 50 early in the game. A very fast bow like a Matriarchal Bow so that you can get very high attack speed. Attack speed is everything on this, whereas with Physical Bow, it's also the damage of the bow itself. Attack speed is very important to just pump out that damage of freezing arrows, so definitely want a very high attack speed. Hair recovery, whatever you can afford. Since you have dodge, it's not a super big deal, but it can matter when you get hit, so I would try to at least get the 20 frame. Honestly, it's pretty low. You can go for like 32 if you want to be a bit more comfortable in hardcore, I think. But we are, we got some gear that's helping us out with this, so that's nice. It can be hard to get FHR in this particular build setup, and we'll talk about why when we go here. Or at least you'll see why. I don't know if we'll talk about it. We'll see why. FCR is not important at all, so you don't need FCR on this build. This is no teleports, no spells. It's just purely attack speed. Any kind of bows. Deadly Strike will help with the physical damage a little bit for the leech, but the more important stats is our leech here. Leech is important. 13 life leech and 10 mana leech. Since we're only leeching off the physical damage, which isn't very high on this build, our leech is a lot less than a physical boson. However, it's still very significant, and it's staving off using mana potions, and it's staving off having to heal. And actually, you'll notice that I was being very aggressive in healing and not taking a lot of damage, mostly because I have a decent amount of life leech. The good thing about ice, though, is ice has a lot of life leech itself, so not a problem. And then, of course, one of the most important stats on this build is, no matter how you build it, is projectile pierce. It's more important to have 100 projectile pierce on a ice maiden than it is to have it on a physical boson. It is important on a physical boson for sure to hit enemies behind multi-shots, very important. But I would say it's even more important for this build because your damage, having that 4.8k proc off of tons of monsters, in order to get that crazy DPS feel with the monsters is dropping, being vaporized, you really need pierce. So you can't skip this stat. It's mandatory that every time you shoot one of these arrows, that's piercing through a maximum amount. That is going to lead to the best possible outcomes for your damage overall. So I definitely would go shoot for 100%. You really can't skimp on that stat. Magic Find, this is another one of those builds, kind of like the Physical Zealer or the Physical Boson. It's really hard to stack Magic Find. I'm mostly stacking it with my charms. There are ways to stack it, of course, and it depends on other corruptions that you get. But it's going to be tough to get maybe above 150 on this build unless you want to sacrifice too much damage. That being said, is inside of a map, we can still hit up 250 MF pretty easily, even with 92 Magic Find, as long as we roll some decent rare maps, which is plenty. It's plenty with the diminishing returns and whatnot. So, especially on hardcore, this is not a super important thing to have super high. You'll notice that I found plenty of unique items in those maps, even if they weren't amazing ones, and set items, even with an insane amount of Magic Finds, so including a perfect facet. So that was just in this demo today. We also found tons yesterday. It's definitely not something you absolutely need to worry about too much. In this character, like I said, if you want to run Travincal or River of Blood, you could actually convert this character into a River of Blood or Travincal gold farmer by killing the council members and stacking gold find. Because the weapon itself has 300% gold find. I am not doing that for this build, but you can do it. There's definitely versions of this build that exist that are very good for. I think that's pretty much it in terms of useful or important stats for this build. All right, cool. Next up, let's go over skills. Oh, very nice. Another low rune. Damn, killing it. What's up, K-Russ? How you doing? Okay, now let me know if you guys want any free items or trade items after the guide. We'll go do some more maps and you guys can see it. Alright, so skills. Alright, so this is pretty straightforward stuff, really. No matter how you want to build this character, even if you want like a really powerful single target ice arrow, which you can do, I could have actually used this for bosses instead of this if I wanted. But since this pierces, this is still doing a ton of damage. But I could use Ice Arrow, and you could make it stronger by maxing out Magic Arrow. For the most part, no matter how you build this character, you have to do this. You have to go Freezing Arrow, Ice Arrow, Cold Arrow, all the synergies, and then you're primarily using Freezing Arrow. You can use this for bosses, but like I said, with this piercing damage, it does similar damage to Ice Arrow anyway. And you do need attack rating for Ice Arrow, so if you're not wearing a lot of attack rating gear, this ability can be more frustrating to use than Freezing Arrow, whereas with Freezing Arrow, you don't really need it. It's helping out your leech, but you don't really need attack rating, so remember, when you hit a monster, you're piercing through, it's exploding every time it hits a monster, so it's not super important to have attack rating for this, but it is pretty important for these two. So being non-attack rating based, this is going to be your primary ability all the time, but on PD2 there's definitely uses for this and this one. Close-up damage can be nice just for greater spread with Cold Arrow. Ice Arrow can be nice against single targets. Magic Arrow, of course, is a synergy for Ice Arrow and Cold Arrow, so if you plan to use all three of these abilities just because you want to or because you want to use them in more situations, you can max out your Magic Arrow. I did not on this build, though. Partially because I was so preoccupied with this skill. I need more Pierce. I only have a Pierce Corruption. I'm not wearing Razor Tail, so I need 100% Pierce once again. So you're going to pump this until you get 100% Pierce with your items and with this combined. Since we're wearing this item, it's giving us Pierce. We get 100% Pierce there. We're good to go. Don't need to worry about critical strike much. You can level it up a bit if you want to.
I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this
thank you.
forsaken camp.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the Call of Xander's Day. If you want to increase your physical damage for leeching a bit, once again, it's only going to affect your ability to leech. This is not double. This is not double elemental damage. It is double physical damage. It doesn't say that, but yeah, that's how that works. Penetrate. I put 1 point into it just so that I do have more attack rating, but you really don't need it too much. It does help with the leeching a bit though, so it's not bad to put 1 point into. These two skills here, you can put 1 point or more points if you want to level them up for hardcore, or just on softcore. They're very good for survivability on a character that has no shield. So you have chances to dodge when you're attacking, standing still, or moving around, or walking, or whatever. These are very nice abilities to have at least 1 point into, especially for hardcore. And I maxed out Valkyries. The Valkyries help kill my cold immunes, and they also help Mercenary tank, and they also help you tank as well in hardcore by absorbing lots of damage. If you max them out, they can actually absorb damage pretty effectively. I saw they were able to survive for pretty long periods of time, but of course you will have to regenerate them, especially when some of the monsters get some really nasty auras. They're definitely going to have to revive them here and there, because they will die here. Sure. On my swap right now, I'm actually hitting 30 skills, so at 30 you get 3 Valkyries. You could actually go for more plus skill corruptions and have 3 Valkyries and make this build even more effective in some ways. That's kind of nice. Another thing you can do is if you have Razor Tail on your build, you don't have to put many points into Pierce. Or if you don't want to be very tanky and feel like you're decent enough with Freezing Arrow, you can actually take these points here if you don't want the defensive skills and everything else, or the Pierce, so you don't need it. You can actually put them into Magic Arrow, as I was talking about before, or you can actually put them into Fire skills. You get a decent amount, but not a huge amount of fire damage, and you can kind of like hybridize your damage. But you'd have to have a lot of points for that, so you'd have to take all these points out, all these points out, pretty much all the other spare points out too, and you'd also have to get to a pretty high level. But you could do that. You could focus on Exploding Arrow, for instance, and you can go Exploding Arrow plus either Immolation or Magic Arrow, using that a bit. You can also go Fire Arrow if you want more damage too, but I think Exploding is nice, because Exploding works like Freezing Arrow. Every time it pierces, it does damage. So, because these abilities work similarly, I would say you don't need as much damage on this one necessarily, so you can definitely focus on Exploding. Those are basically the only approaches I would probably take, though. Your physical damage without auras and maximum damage and whatnot, and ED and Deadly Strike is going to be pretty negligible. An attack like these. You could go Guided Arrow, though, or Shot as well, or Strafe. You could definitely do these things as to hybridize your damage if you want to. 1 point until like Guided Arrow wouldn't be horrible, for instance. It's definitely another viable approach. So, enough of the viable approaches. Now, something, fight! Do something. I did a lot of fighting. We just came in, we are going over the guide at the moment. So this is the guide portion. So, now we need to talk about the Mercenary a bit. So, without Infinity, it's clear what your option is. You definitely want to go Act 1, so not Act 2 like I'm currently using. And you're going to want to go Act 1 with either Cold Arrow or Fire Arrow, depending on if you want to wear Harmony with Meditation, you want both Vigor and Meditation, or you just want Act 1 and you can only afford a Faith, so you put on a Faith with Vigor Aura so you can move around quickly with Faith, and then you can hit a frame 7 attack speed, this bow that I'm currently using, and you can fire even faster than this. Did that, tested it out yesterday. I'm not going to demo it, but I did test it out with frame 7. There's some weaknesses and strengths in the late game, though. So, unless you have a ton of Cold Pierce on your gear, I mean a ton, you need a lot of like facets and really good Night Wings. you're going to struggle to get enough Cold Pierce to be as effective in maps, especially like places like River of Blood and Ancestral Trial. For cows, you would need -50 to get maximum effectiveness. With your base Pierce, I only have -33 on this build. And I'll show you kind of why, but you can get -50 or higher. You could definitely justify not using Infinity and going frame 7 with Faith and Vigor Aura, and in a lot of cases that will actually improve your clear speed. Like I said, against River of Blood, Ancestral Trial, there's so much cold resistance in those maps. Maybe not immunities necessarily, but resistance. You really want as much Pierce as possible. And in those situations, Infinity is very useful because it gives you an additional -34. One thing, of course, to always note about Hardcore, I should go over it every time just because, is that we have an Act 2 Mercenary here. The Act 2 Mercenary, of course, you can get Defiance Aura. Defiance Aura is insane. 9 flat physical damage reduction and 9% physical damage. On top of that, it boosts my defense from 2,000 to 7,000. That's very good stuff for Hardcore. So on Hardcore, you can almost say that almost nothing is going to beat that Defiance Aura Mercenary, as long as you use weapons and aura pieces that synergize with your build. It's very hard to beat. On my Boson, I don't use an Act 2 actually, because one, she does enough damage to where she doesn't need the Mercenary's physical damage, and she doesn't have any resistance problems, immunity problems, because she has Amp on her gear, and she also has Battle Cry, which will eliminate any physical immunity in the game. So, because of that, she doesn't really need the Mercenary's damage, and then two, she can move around faster, and since her build's all about attack speed and not elemental pierce, and she already has the pierce using Amp on herself, she's good to go. Since we're not doing physical damage, I don't have Amp on myself. I don't have Conviction on myself either. So it's very hard to get that amount of pierce. One thing to note about Conviction as well is Conviction can break some cold immunes, especially in Travincal, and it can break a lot of cold immunes from elite packs that only cold immune because of some mods they got, like Magic Resistance or Spectral Hit, and it can break those if they weren't cold immune before, and it can actually improve the smoothness of your gameplay. Cases there. Overall, though, there's a lot of things to be said about the Mercenary debate on this build. It's actually, the reason why we're talking so much about this is that it's actually pretty close, and there's a lot of different reasons to use either or for this build. There's not just one Mercenary type I would use necessarily. One thing I also like about the Act 2 Mercenary, though, on this build is because you're doing cold damage. Having a large source of physical damage that isn't just the kind of weak physical sources of the Valkyries is very useful for plowing through maps like River of Blood, where there's a significant amount of, not a huge amount, but a significant amount of cold immunes, and being able to just run through them and not worrying about them surviving long and following you around everywhere is very, very useful. So it depends on what you want to do. If you're only doing Blood Moon maps and you can get -50 on your gear, I'd actually go for the frame 7 fanaticism approach. If you're going for Blood Moon or Ancestral Trial, even with a lot of Pierce in your gear, Infinity I think is still maybe the better way to go. Because you get the Act 2 Mercenary for the physical damage, and you get additional Pierce for the very high cold resistance in those maps. So that pretty much settles that debate. Anyway, settles it enough. People can still debate it, but I did a lot of testing these last couple days, so definitely seen a lot there. All right. So without further ado, let's go over his gear. So we're not using the Faith version, Act 1 Mercenary, using Infinity. That's pretty much your only best in slot in Act 2 Mercenary, so get this when you can. The rest of the gear is basically just res, attack speed, life leech, slows target, cannot be frozen, that kind of stuff. There's definitely other options. I'd actually recommend maybe going for more DR so he doesn't die. It's not like he dies often anyway because of Valkyries, but he has a Defiance Aura. It does give him a decent amount of DR. But you could go for like Vampire Gaze with more attack speed jewels if you get like multiple sockets. Do a lot of things. You can also go like Shaft Stop, Leviathan. He actually does a lot of damage with Fortitude, though. See, Fortitude's the damage option. And because he's doing this much damage, he's picking off those cold immunes. You'll notice you go back even, but if you're paying a lot of attention, of course, to the River of Blood maps and whatnot, he was destroying the cold immunes, like one-shotting them, basically. That's what you want. So damage is good. F Infinity with a high damage profile is very nice. Make sure whatever base you make it in, make sure you mind how much attack speed you need to get a decent amount of attack speed on your weapon. Great Poleaxe is very good for high minimum and high maximum damage. Overall, high damage and attack speed and life leech and also DR. Maybe some max res as well. It's going to be a very tanky void. It's going to do damage. That's basically all you're really going for with the Mercenary, so it's not too complicated there. Right. Here. So, we talked about a lot about the Mercenaries and what you can do in early game and late game and what. Harmony on Cold Arrow Act 1, early game and whatnot, and for LOD areas. We talked about all the other mercenary stuff, but now let's go over my own gear. There's definitely some options here. Your cheapest option that's going to give you the most bang for your buck on this build is probably Wizened Draw, especially if you want to start mapping early. Wizened Draw is negative 35 cold resistance potentially, which is huge. It's like having infinity but on a weapon. Of course, infinity can break some cold immunes, even though cold is the hardest immunity to break for the most part. Still pretty solid. So, Wizened Draw pierces those cold resistances, even in LOD content, which is going to gracefully increase your damage. It also gives you some attack speed. It also gives you 20, just like this weapon does. So Wizened Draw is a very solid option. It's just a long battle bow. It's a pretty common unique. You could also use Melody. Which Melody can give you up to 6 bow and crossbow skills, along with attack speed. By having 3 on itself, additional free bow provided by the rune word itself, not just the base. So the base plus the rune word, you can get 6 on that weapon, and that's actually a lot of damage. That's 6 skills you can get on a Melody. Of course, you can also use Mavina's set. So one thing to note here is Mavina's bow fits very well here. Early game, I'd say not super early game, but like maybe early mid game. Acquiring a full Mavina's set is a very easy way to make this build very powerful. Especially if you can get like Cold Pierce Corruption on it, that would be the dream. It's almost as powerful as even this late game version, but not quite. Falls a little short. Ice, we're about to talk about here in a second, which is the best in slot, pretty much. I mean, it's the best in slot in LOD as well. Everything about Ice is pretty insane. Mavina's is really good. Wizened Draw. I think I went over most options there. Wizened Draw, Venus, Melody. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the really strong options. But Ice is best in slot. So Ice, if you get a high roll, and the high roll I actually rolled 30% on it, so I got lucky. 30% cold skill damage. That is insane boost to your damage. Has life leech as well for the physical damage. It also gives you a decent amount of physical damage for leeching, both mana and life leech, unlike Wizened Draw, and unlike Melody, which really don't give you much physical damage at all. And it also gives you that 20 Cold Pierce, so it's not as high as Wizened Draw's Cold Pierce, but when you have other sources of Cold Pierce like Nightwings or Infinity, negative 20 is a lot. It's a very, very solid chunk of enemy cold res there. And then of course you got the ignore target defense, which also helps the leeching. You still get the attack speed, you get a lot of damage, and you get 3 to bow and crossbow skills as long as you make it an Amazon only. Also gives you Holy Freeze, so monsters that come close to you automatically be frozen if they're not already frozen by your freezing arrow. So everything is frozen all the time. Perfect. And also, upon striking, even with a bow, so striking includes ranged attacks. We're also casting level 32 Frost Nova. Now, it's not synergies, but 32 Frost Nova, no synergies 20% of the time as it passes through enemies, which is definitely adding to your DPS. Like, even with no synergies. So that's very, very insane. Also, this is the fastest, once again, class-specific base. Why it's in a matriarchal bow. That also does a lot of damage. GMB is a lot slower, so it's harder to get that amount of attack speed, and this build is all about attack speed, so than the physical damage on itself. So matriarchal bow is probably going to be your best base option if you're looking to make an ice. Alright, next. Swap, pretty straightforward, CTA and lidless, so we get maximum skills, and so we just boost our health and mana, and we get an additional skill. Doesn't hurt our damage at all. Good stuff. Next option is Nightwings. Now, Nightwings, I would say, is definitely best in slot here. You get a ton of Old Pierce. This is a pretty good facet in it, and it's also a pretty good initial roll. But unfortunately, I only got one socket in it. I tried to puzzle box it for 2. I'd say a 2 or 3 socket one with really high Cold Pierce, even higher than this. You can definitely get like -20 or even higher Cold Pierce on the Nightwings, which can actually help with areas like Ancestral Trial. So you can definitely make this even stronger. The dex, of course, is good because it helps you use your bow, which costs a lot of dex. So there's really everything you want on this helm. You get the 2 skills, you get the Pierce, you get the percent cold skill damage, which is also very high. In my case, I'm also getting some res, which I so desperately need for my own corruption. I actually self-found and corrupted it and puzzled it. Tried to puzzle it, but I got it. And it's pretty solid. So this is very, very good. Best in slot 100%. But that being said, if you don't have a Nightwings, Shaco will be okay. So will Valkyrie Wing. When you don't have this, you might have to stack some facets in Shaco or Valkyrie Wing, but they also work pretty decently. Anything with skills, Zon skills, anything with all skills, anything that gives you mana, life, faster run walk. A Valkyrie Wing gives you MPK, which will help sustain your mana, so it's actually pretty nice in a lot of ways. Yeah, overall, those are good options. If you want to have even more DR in hardcore, of course, you can go for like a 3-socket Crown of Ages with 15% DR or almost 15% DR, and then you can also stuff that with cold facets as well. So if you want to go a little bit less on the damage and more on the survivability. So those are pretty much your options, I would say, for your helm. At least for the good options. Crescent Moon. Crescent Moon. Crescent Moon is pretty much everything you ever would want on this build, softcore or hardcore. It's got everything, man. It's got MDR, it's got a large amount of mana, it's got dual leech for your bow. You really need a lot of leech to make that low amount of physical damage really count. Ice Boson is your attack speed, which this 10 attack speed is actually helping us hit that 75 attack speed breakpoint. Without it, it'd only be at 70, so it wouldn't be hitting that. 2 cold skills, you can even get 3 cold skills with a +1 corruption. Better corruptions, better boxes, you know how it works. But I actually self-found and corrupted this. I corrupted it with faster run walk, which is actually a very good stat. Having just a little bit extra faster run walk is nice. See that we're a little slower without it, so that's kind of nice. Running around, it's definitely a running around build, so any kind of want faster run walks on a bad stat. All right, gloves, pretty much 220s or 320s here. There is another option. You could also use frost burns, but to use frost burns in this slot, you'd pretty much have to you'd have to have attack speed elsewhere. Once again, for 7 frame with fanaticism, you need about 50 attack speed, depending on the level of fanaticism. And for this build, you need at least 75 to hit 8 frame with no fanaticism. So you mind your attack speed. You could go Frostburns, though. Frostburns has some Cold Pierce on it. It also has a huge amount of maximum mana, which is good for sustaining. That being said, though, these gloves are very good. Mana Leech is very good. 220 is very good. Gives us our attack speed, gives us our skills, And we also get our res, which we so desperately need. So I have a pair of 320s as well, but I really can't justify using them when I also need res, and mana leech definitely is very useful. So I think an extra skill is not worth using some of those other stats, at least on hardcore. But on softcore, 320s are almost always a no-brainer, or frostburns, depending on if you sustain. Chaff stop. Chaff stop. Okay, so this is an item you've seen on many of my builds now. I'm reusing it many times. Why? Because a 3-socketed high PDR chaff stop is so incredible in hardcore. You can use it on so many things. I'm literally using it on almost every build that doesn't have a storm shield. So all the paladin builds that use paladin shields, and all the builds that don't use a shield at all. It's just so good. You really need that physical damage reduction if you want to play aggressively and hardcore on the boson. Once again, it just does everything. And in this case, I'm getting my attack speed with it, which I really need. So I can put my cold facet up here, cold facets up there if I had more sockets. Try to improve that at some point, I think, but we'll see. 15 all res though, jewel with dex, and very high single res attack speed. We really need res, we really need PDR so desperately. Once again, this is another type of a boson. This build even struggles with res harder than the physical boson, because we're not wearing the Crown of Aegis, and we're not wearing Veil of Steel. So Veil of Steel and Crown of Aegis have a lot of res. So we are really struggling with res. So these res corruptions are keeping us alive. And I have all my charms are res too, all the ones that aren't grand charms. So it's a real struggle. It's a real struggle. So yeah, we have lots of res. We don't need ED because it's once again elemental damage. So the only other things you'd want to put in here, if let's say you're going like frame 7, you don't need this attack speed because you have fanaticism. And you can run cold facets in here, for instance, softcore, or you could put cold facets in an Ormus on softcore, or you could run chains of honor if you want more res and a lot less DR, and you don't need the attack speed there either. You can run chains of honor. Also has 2+ skills. I'm not a huge fan of that armor overall, but I know that it's useful for this build potentially. Enigma also, faster unlock, 2 skills. More magic find, which is another pain point on this build. If you don't want the res, I would only use it on softcore though, because you really need the res or the PDR or something. Enigma gives you some. Called Chains of Honor and Enigma give you 4% PDR, so it's a big difference. In general, I think the idea is you want high survivability. If you're going like hardcore on this armor, and you want to maintain your attack speed, or you want to maintain your attack speed and you want more plus skills, and you want more facets, things of that nature. It's pretty much what you want to go for the armor on this build. Okay. Stone of Jordan. So I think Stone of Jordan for the most part is pretty much best in slot. A mana leech or mana per kill Stone of Jordan, or a magic find one with a lot of mana would be amazing. Matter of fact, if I could get an MF corruption on a Stone of Jordan, I'd probably replace BK Ring. Even though I'd lose a little bit of life, it's okay, because just more mana is really nice for the sustain. But you can also use like 1 BK Ring for more survivability, plus a Stone of Jordan with life per kill. And that works pretty well too. So, skill rings are pretty good here. Other things that are good, if you don't have Cannot Be Frozen anywhere else in your build, you can also use Raven Frost, of course. I guess that also goes for the Helm. You could also use Kira's. Kira's gives Cannot Be Frozen. And Kira's also has Cold Pierce. So, Kira's is not a bad option, really. Especially if you're hurting for res. I actually considered putting Kira's on this build because I was so hurting for res, but I guess the shaft stop does the justice, so it's fine. But Kira's is definitely an option. Of course, more skills. Skills in general are going to be very good. You can also put like dual leech rings on if you want more leech. There's definitely other things you can do, like dual leech, really high mana rings. But I think skill rings like Stone of Jordan specifically pretty much going to be your best option. You don't need Wiz Projector because you're not doing physical damage once again. Addendum. Alright, so this is an interesting belt. It matches the Nightwings, so it's kind of cute, but Main reason we're using it is because we got Pierce Corruption on a belt is giving us res. Once again, if you want to play aggressively on this build, we need max res, which is so hard to get on this build. It's usually a very fragile build. Making it hardcore proof is very tough. Pierce Corruption on this belt's very nice. But what I will say though is if I was playing softcore, I would never use this belt. I would definitely use Snow Clash or Razor Tail. Razor Tail would allow us to put more points into other damage skills, including like fire skills like I was mentioning before, because we wouldn't need as much Pierce. We don't need any extra skills into Pierce, because we'd have 33% off the bat and be fine. Of course, Snow Clash in Season 2 gives 2 cold skills, period. So it's not just sorcerer skills, it's 2 cold skills potentially. That's just a lot of damage on the build. I wouldn't really care for a rack on this build. A rack would work on an LOD version of this build, but it only gives 1 skill and it only gives FCR, which you don't need. So, at least not on a PD2. So, I would definitely stick to probably Razor Tail or Snow Clash. And if you really need more DR or res, and that's what you're suffering on your build, go Pierce Corruption, Credendum, or Verdungos. Pretty much the only options I would use on this build. Verdungos is an option though, but once again, I think res is an even bigger priority on my build than the DR, and I am getting a lot of life from extra strength and dex. And gear is very expensive on the strength and the dex, very hard on it. You can see on the shaft stop though, upping it gives us a lot more defense, but it does mean the strength requirement goes way up, which is I had to put like almost 40 extra points into strength because of that, which is definitely a weakness. Then again, having Credendum definitely helps, so survivability is not a bad point of this build. So we're trying to survive in hardcore, that's definitely not a terrible idea. Yes, you guys can. If you haven't seen it in action yet, Jess came in. We are just finishing the guide, so we're about to play her again very soon. All right, anyway. Here, low shank. All right, scarab shell boots cannot be frozen. So this is a this is my source of cannot be frozen. You need cannot be frozen somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to be firing very slowly. Decrepify, as annoying as it is, which is actually something you could do if you go like Crown of Ages with facets. You could actually like put like curse duration reduction on your gear and make yourself curse immune. And so then you can make yourself cannot be frozen and decrepify immune, which is actually very nice for Nath Kill the Numb and Oblivion Knights. River of Blood, for instance. So that could actually be an approach too. One thing to note though about these boots here though, that we got sick res, which we really need. Once again, look at my res. Suffering is so bad. And these boots were awesome. So we found them in Travincal. We were doing Travincal. We were also getting dex off them. We actually do need the dex. And 3010, which is the best it can possibly roll on a pair of rare boots. Getting some FHR as well, which you're also very low on. Faster unlock is high, which is good. And cannot be frozen. So I got an insane corruption on this. I think I posted this side of my. I don't know if I did. It's one of our sicker corruptions. It's a recent. You could go word traps here, other things. Once again, softcore, anything to boost that magic find or boost that faster one walk, or I mean you could literally run 0 or negative res in softcore on this build and you'll be fine most of the time. Just those times where you get hit by projectiles and you just start taking enormous amounts of damage. This does allow you to play a lot more aggressively though, so there's nothing wrong with this. On hardcore, it's almost required. Alright, so especially since we don't have a shield, we have no block. Blocking is very nice, and we don't have it. We have some dodge though. About it. Yeah, those boots are sick. Like these boots are actually sick for sure. I think these boots are insane. Alright, one thing to note now, of course, is you want bow skillers. So the only bosons you ever want bow skillers on are elemental bosons. Since Freezing Arizona is the strongest version of any elemental zone, it's pretty much the only game in town. Those skillers are greatly increasing our damage. You can see this here. Lose like 150 damage. Yeah, 150 damage per skiller. So we actually get a ton of damage from our skills. So we're going to be using some lifer skillers. Don't throw away those life bow skillers. It's not like LOD where these are almost useless in most cases because of mapping, this build is actually really strong in PD2. So if you find these, make sure to sell them if you don't want to make the build yourself. It's actually it's the best case scenario for these. Since it's an S tier build, this is not a joke. Alright. 40 MF on the Geed's Fortune. GG. Geed's Fortune. Bow skillers. Good Amazon Torch. Decent Annie. Just get as good as you can on all these if you can get them. Many plus skills. Res. As much res as possible. Especially the res. They think about the res. And, yeah, as you can see, we're still thinking about the res. See, even I'm suffering in the MF department, which we showed before. I have 92 MF, and you can see that I really need these MF charms, but I also need the res very badly. So, good MF res small charms are really good on this hardcore version of the build, especially when getting MF on the gear is very tough. And also life res. Life res is also good too. So, I don't have enough, like, since my fire res is good because of my fire res corruption on my Nightwings, I don't need fire res, so I can't totally stack MF. I could stack more MF, so you could definitely do that if you feel comfortable dropping your health to around 1900, which might be okay, but if you feel comfortable doing that, feel free to put some more MF. And this is giving us our 20 breakpoint here. Also, once again, helping with that res we so desperately need. Notice if I remove any of my res charms, I am down res. That's how tight this build is for res. Even with Credendum and a pair of boots, it's giving Canopy Frozen dual res and dual res on the gloves, and a res corruption in the Nightwings, and res faster attack speed jewels in the shaft stop. So this build does not get res, which is why it's so hard to make this build hardcore viable. But my recommendation to you, though, is if you really want to make this build hardcore viable, you really want that Defiance Aura, I think you want the Act 2 Mercenary approach. You definitely want to stack res wherever you can get it. And don't be afraid to use something that just, gives you res somewhere else, like maybe res and DR, like a shaft stop. And don't necessarily stack facets everywhere. And then you'll be fine. I could get more res on the rings too, to be fair. Like, I could get, like, all res corruptions on the Stone of Jordan. So there are other places you could still get res. Or on the amulet. It's just, you gotta make sure you're getting your res, for sure. It's kind of hard. It's a lot of res you need. So even if you don't want to use Credendum and you want to use, like, pure Snow Clash, you might want, like, a all-res corrupted Crescent Moon. Or, like, all-res corrupted rings. Vice versa. But anyway, guys, no, torches can only get +1 in Project Diablo 2 Chrono Luminaire. They nerfed the number of skills on torches. It says +6 there, but I'm assuming it's a range bug. There's a lot of range bugs. It says 0 to 6, and 0 is also impossible. So is every number from 2 to 6. So at least the vitality, energy, and all res ranges are accurate. So is the light radius. So at least you know what those ranges are. That's good. All right. Anyway, GG guys. So this build in a lot of maps like Blood Moon is a lot stronger than a physical boson because not only are you piercing through everything, but you're like instantly killing it. Even the physical boson usually takes a couple of volleys. So this build will actually clear maps like Blood Moon on average, usually faster than a physical boson will. She also clears some maps like Ancestral Trial a lot better than a physical boson. That being said, a physical boson would smoke this character in a map like Throne of Insanity. Both builds are very close in overall power. Once you reach the end game and you get items like Ice, Infinity, Nightwings, and Skillers, and Torch, and Annie. So you get items like this. You reach like 42 skills, 40 plus skills on this build, and 6k plus multi-shot maybe on standard physical boson. You will be doing a ton of damage no matter what. So no matter which one you choose, they're both insane builds for boson. Fire builds are a bit weaker. They're like anywhere from B to A tier, so they're not as strong as these S tier boson builds, the freezing arrow and the physical boson. But they have both have advantages. They both pierce though. Um, they both can do some things very well. In some sense, this build might be even better with high density than the physical boson, because multi-shot doesn't necessarily scale with density, but it does pierce through density. That's one thing to note as well. But both are insane builds. Definitely like some of the, I'd say, top 10, top 15 builds this season. So bosons, very good way to go. Even in the early game, this build destroys even LD areas, not just maps. So even without ice, even if when you're using like Wiz and Draw, you're still going to be destroying LOD areas like Travincal, and Stony Tomb, and Ancient Tunnels, and things like that, Maggot Lair. So this, and Chaos, of course, a bit later. This build is insane. It's very insanely strong. You saw it just shatter, vaporize whole hordes of monsters. Very little effort. Overall, it's a crazy build. You can check out, of course, this build guide along with my other build guides in my PD2 guides section. You can also, of course, check out the full map rankings for this build in the description and the first pinned comment below. And yeah, overall, I hope you enjoy and love the Ice On. It's a crazy build, maybe underrated, maybe misunderstood because of its LOD areas and its very limited use in Ancient Tunnels in LOD. It is insanely strong in PD2. All that map density. So go get it. Go get it. Remember, you guys can always catch me at www.twitch.tv/darkhumility. If you would like to watch my content, I usually do Diablo 2 7 days a week. Let's catch us here. GG stuff, guys. Let's get it. And see you guys next time. Peace out, Dark Humility. For now.